Anand, thank you so much for joining. It really means a lot that you're here and that you've been so gracious with me while we've been trying to schedule over the last few weeks.
Thank you for having me. As I said earlier, I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing, and this is just out of respect for, the wonderful music work that you guys are doing. And I feel like you guys are really essential in making the ecosystem better. And I feel like, yeah, it's good that we're having this conversation.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I want to get right to it and just learn a little bit more about you because I think a lot of people that I talk to that read Hamnawa or listen to the stuff that we do are very interested in your work, but don't know as much about you as they want to. And so when I ask people who I should talk to and profile, your name was right up there. Um, and so I want to chart the journey. Like I was introduced to your work through Bikhra, which blew up really quickly and really suddenly. And I think the easy story to tell about it is that it was like an overnight success. But the more I stalk you and figure out, the more I realize that there's many years leading up to that. Nothing is an overnight success, and you've been actually playing for a long time. And that may be the first song that a lot of people heard of you, but your journey is much longer than that. So I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about what that journey looked like.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's true that Bikra was that song that everybody got to know. But again, the music journey really goes back because even when I wasn't really releasing my own songs, I was just, recording covers. And I was in an engineering school, and आपको पता ही है, like काफी stressful होती है, especially in Pakistan, the whole degree. And for me, throughout my A levels and throughout my university, my only escape was music. So right next to my study table, I used to have my guitar, and I just used to, like, compose stuff and just keep it in my recordings. And I never really planned to release it, but eventually, COVID pushed me to actually, go back to my backlog and just start going through those things and maybe, like, start releasing those things. But yeah, the journey goes back, and it's just आज भी शायद वही एसेंस है जो मैं कैरी फॉरवर्ड कर रहा हूँ, which is keeping my music as an escape and not really forcing myself to make new music every other day. So I still work, and for me, music अभी भी एक वो है कि अच्छा यार, I have this, which is my truest friend, and I can always fall back to this whenever I want, without any pressure, without any, you know, need to create. And उस पूरे प्रोसेस के बीच में शायद कुछ बन भी जाए. So that's what I enjoy. And again, journey goes back. University में करता रहता था कुछ ना कुछ covers ये वो. Then I released one song, and then, one thing led to another, और फिर चीजें होती गई.
So tell me about that story. I think like 2022 is where it started. 2023 has been even bigger for you. Like at the end of this year, you have the most songs in of the Pakistani people in Spotify's top 10. It's kind of just, even if you chart how quick that journey is and how many other people have shown up after COVID, the fact that you're the one that is in there, with the likes of Atif and Talhanjum, and your name is up there. Can you make sense of it? Like, can you make sense of how fast that was? And if you look back at your music, can you see what connects it?
So I don't really think there are any patterns or any, formulas that people can just use and be in this position. First of all, I'm really grateful and really, humbled to be a part of this list, for example, that you talked about. But at the same time, कोई इसमें एक खास कोई process नहीं है. So as I mentioned earlier, creativity वैसी ही बहुत chaotic होती है, especially with, the current routine and lifestyles and, being in this country
Hmm.
alone. But yeah, I feel like it just came from the truest side without any pressure. uh, उस चीज को मैं बहुत credit करता हूँ. Like, people always say कि यार just quit your job and do music full time. I I I don't say I'm against it. Go, by all means do that. But it varies from person to person, right? So for me, I need to have a source to, keep my mind engaged, and I need to have something that gives me instant gratification. With music, it's not always that. Sometimes you just end up making nothing, and you're constantly stuck in that loop. So this really helped me, channeling my mind into something which gives me instant gratification, and then having a soft spot for music in which I can just be myself and make whatever I want. Um, I think that is something which helped me. Like, most people don't give credit to that. कुछ आपकी ज़िंदगी के कुछ और चीज़ें होती हैं, वो अलाइन हो रही होती हैं, and you never know. जैसे कोविड आया, and I was working 5 days a week as an engineer, and that is when I started to make my, career एक तरह से, because that is when I released my first official song जो मैंने खुद से लिखा था. So I think, yeah, that is something that I don't think any people would say that anyone would say that, because it's a very unique statement. But having something on the side, and keeping this as a fallback, as an escape, has made it some made it very pure, to put it in the best way. So इसके अलावा अगर मैं कोई पैटर्न्स देखूं, तो मुझे यही लगता है कि फिर कुछ चीज़ें होती हैं जो बस बाय लक अलाइन हो रही होती हैं. जैसे Spotify charts आया, and then it just showed a statement that without any major funding, without any major labels backing you, there's a guy who is crossing big songs on the list. So even if I look at it from a third person perspective, I think it's a big statement, and it's kind of like an enabler. And then little things like these, they kept on happening, and one thing led to another. So it was also universe aligning a lot of things together. And of course, ठीक है, मैंने भी कुछ चीज़ें की हैं, मैंने भी मेहनत की है, बट यूनिवर्स को भी इसका बहुत क्रेडिट जाता है, हर चीज़ कैसे अलाइन होती है. So to answer your question, if I can't really give you a formula, it's just that all these little things, they kept on happening, and then, yeah, now you have a list of 10 songs with three of them being mine. So I don't know.
You're very gracious and surprisingly, just amazingly humble. और आपने ये किया कि पिछले 2 मिनट में मेरे अगले जितने भी 10 सवाल थे उन सब का थोड़ा थोड़ा जवाब दे दिया. तो अब मैं उनको थोड़ा थोड़ा ना प्रोब करूंगा. अच्छा, आपने 2 दफ़ा जिक्र किया साथ इंजीनियरिंग करने का, तो मुझे इस बात से बहुत इंटरेस्ट था आपसे बात करने का, क्योंकि मेरी भी वही फील्ड है, वहीं से मैं भी आया हूँ.
Okay.
And so I understand what you're saying about having this like creative side on the side. So my day job is also software, but my side job is also software or this. लेकिन उसमें एक आपको चांस मिल जाता है, like when you don't depend on something to provide a livelihood or to be your entire person, then you can give it your only your best and you can give it your
Yeah.
creative control. Like उधर आपको फिर compromise नहीं करना पड़ता जब आपका दिल ना
Yeah.
चाहे. So I
बिल्कुल.
can understand how that cleans things up. What sort of, you do software engineering, if I'm not wrong?
I am a front-end engineer, to be specific.
Now, what sort of domains do you work in? Sorry, I'm
So
just curious.
yeah, I'm primarily working on React and TypeScript, और उसके साथ uh, different design systems, थोड़ा बहुत UX से भी मैं contribute करता हूँ, but primarily front end with React and TypeScript.
Chalo, I might have a business conversation with you at some other point offline. I have one theory about why your music hits so much, which I think this theory does not sit well with one part of the music industry, which is that I think you, more than other people, put a lot of emphasis, or your songs do, on the words and how audible they are and what the words are and how singable they are. Like if you look at a lot of modern kind of electronic pop music, there's a lot of emphasis on the beat, there's a lot of emphasis on the production. लेकिन मैं इस मार्केट को जब देखता हूँ, a lot of it eventually comes down to the voice. And when I look at your songs compared to the other hits that are in there, the melodies are really easy to sing. Your voice and your words are very hummable. They're very catchy. They hit quite a bit, which is not to say that they're simple. It's just that it is a melody that is easy to repeat. Do you think that has something to do with it, or are you attracted to that kind of melody, or is that even a correct uh,
Yes,
analysis?
I agree to a certain extent. I think की रोल जो होता है ना वो मेलोडी का ही होता है because that is something that lives with the person. So if you're listening to a song, पहले listen में most people they don't even purely focus on the lyrics. जब कोई गाना consume करते हैं first go में तो वो एक melody उनके साथ रहती है. That makes them click on play again. So that is like the most important part of it. And then जो words हैं और वो है for me, like I have stayed away from making things super complicated. Um, I have focused more on the understanding of things. And अगर गाना start में शुरू है और end तक उसकी एक cohesive meaning होनी चाहिए, even if it's pretty simple, then वो बस समझ आनी चाहिए. So that has been my theory.
Hmm.
And ये नहीं कि बस एक बिल्कुल abstract gibberish कुछ भी लिख दूँ and just to fill in the melody, right? So that is where a lot of effort goes in, and this is also why I have a very limited discography. I have like 12, 13, I don't know, इतने ही कुछ गाने होंगे. And मेरा होता भी यही है कि there are I've seen people who are working on like 10 songs at a time, for example, and they have a huge backlog that they've parked and they can just release things whenever they want. For me, like I just have one song that I'm working on at a time, and I just focus on it until it has its finesse and it has all the जैसे आप कह रहे थे
Hmm.
clear meanings, clear words, uh, clearly communicated, और ये सारी चीजें जब तक proper हो ना जाए, then I worked on that song and then I release it. फिर I take a break and then you know start working on another one. So yeah, I think to a certain extent आपकी बात ठीक है. वो simplicity में ही I think लोगों को मजा आता है, and people can relate to stuff, people can easily digest and consume stuff, and yeah, they can, in some cases they can even have their own interpretations as well. So yeah, I think that has also worked out.
मैंने आपको लाइव देखा था दिसंबर में चीटो साउंड फेस्ट पे आप बजा रहे थे
Okay.
एंड I heard suddenly, like I wasn't paying, I was looking elsewhere, and then suddenly I heard you playing "As It Was,"
Hmm.
which was surprising for me, but it was such a great cover. Um, and I was intrigued to hear what other covers are a regular part of your set list. And I do this not from the standpoint of आप cover कौन से बजाते हैं, but more from I'm interested in knowing what other types of music or do you feel are strong influences in the work that you put out.
I think ये जो live covers हैं उसको मेरे influences के साथ associate करना wouldn't be fair, क्योंकि
Hmm.
लाइफ का तो ये है ना, लाइक उसका क्राइटेरिया ये होता है व्हाट मैं वैसे यूजुअली बहुत ज़्यादा कवर्स करता नहीं हूँ, सो लाइक एक या दो कवर्स होंगे बीच में,
Hmm.
और वो गाने उनका क्राइटेरिया यही होता है कि द काइंड ऑफ सॉन्ग्स दैट पीपल लिसन टू अ लॉट. सो एज इट वाज वन ऑफ दोस सॉन्ग्स व्हिच ब्लू अप एंड एवरीवन वाज लिसनिंग टू इट दोस डेज. सो उसका क्राइटेरिया सीधा सीधा ये था. इट्स नॉट लाइक आई लाइक दैट सॉन्ग, इट्स आई
Hmm.
हैव लिसन्ड टू इट अ लॉट, बट आई वुडंट से इट्स माय one of my primary influences या कोई इस तरह का सीन. जैसे मैं कभी-कभी आतिफ के कुछ गाने कवर कर लेता हूँ, बट आई एम इंस्पायर्ड बाय आतिफ असलम, बट मैं शायद उसकी वो इंडियन साइड ऑफ म्यूजिक से इतना इंस्पायर्ड नहीं हूँ जितना मैं उसकी जो पुरानी एल्बम्स थी उससे इतना ज़्यादा इंस्पायर्ड हूँ. पर वो मैं इतना
Hmm.
करता नहीं हूँ. मुझे यही
Hmm.
होता है कि लोगों ने ज़्यादा क्या चीज़ सुनी है. सो दैट्स
Hmm.
काइंड ऑफ द क्राइटेरिया फॉर अ कवर इन अ लाइव परफॉर्मेंस. But if you talk about influences, right? So जो आई थिंक एक बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है जिसने मेरी म्यूजिकल मेलोडी सेंस या व्हाटएवर को कंट्रीब्यूट भी किया, वो यही है कि मैंने बहुत म्यूजिक सुना. सो लाइक बचपन से लाइक माय डैड यूज्ड टू लिसन टू ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ म्यूजिक, इवन मेटल. सो ना चाहते हुए भी मैं वो बचपन में कंज्यूम कर रहा था हैवी मेटल म्यूजिक जो कि मैं नहीं सुनना चाहता था. जब बड़ा हुआ तो समझ आई कि अच्छा यार इसका सीन
Hmm.
क्या है. लाइक आई आई
Hmm.
आई वाज actually enjoying it as I grew up, as I grow, as I was maturing एक तरह से. So इसी तरह बहुत सारे बैंड्स वो सुनते थे, बहुत ज़्यादा डायर स्ट्रेट्स और इस तरह की बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ें वो सुनते थे जो मुझे उस टाइम पे नहीं समझ आती थी। बट सबकॉन्शियसली मैं वो कंज़्यूम कर रहा होता था बिकॉज़ ही वाज़ एन एंथुसियास्ट एंड ही यूज्ड टू लिसन टू अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स। एंड एट द सेम टाइम ही यूज्ड टू लिसन टू लाइक गज़ल्स एंड हर तरह की चीज़ें, मतलब वो एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्विच होता जा रहा था बहुत ज़्यादा, एंड आई वाज़ जस्ट कंज्यूमिंग इट। जब मैं बड़ा हुआ मैं वही चीज़ें सुन रहा था फिर, सो फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल अगर पिंक फ्लॉयड सुनते थे वालिद साहब, तो आई आई डिडन्ट अंडरस्टैंड इट उस स्टेज पे, बट बड़े होके मैं वही सुन रहा था चीज़ें। एंड दैट सेंस इवेंचुअली इट इट ग्रोज, एंड देन आप और चीज़ें एक्सप्लोर करते हो तो डायनामिक्स बहुत बड़े हो जाते हैं, मतलब आपका म्यूजिकल जो एक वो होता है कैटलॉग वो बहुत बड़ा हो चुका होता है। एंड देन फिर ऑब्वियसली जेन जी म्यूजिक भी, एंड देन हिप हॉप भी, एंड देन ऑल ऑफ दोज थिंग्स दैट आई यूज्ड टू लिसन टू। सो इन्फ्लुएंसेस बहुत ही ज़्यादा हैं, मतलब
Mm,
at a time in my life I was obsessed with guitars, and I used to cover songs by Guthrie, जो कि
mm,
मतलब he is like a guitar god if you don't know about him, but like मैं उस तरह की साइड पे भी एक बार चला गया था, even though अब my scales are pretty rusty now because I'm not really playing a lot, but again, like you wouldn't expect that from me if you listen to my music, but influences रहे हैं हर तरह के, and I've had a lot of guitar influences and blues और jazz भी मैंने सुना है, और मतलब इतनी चीजें हैं कि मुझसे कोई पूछता है ना कि like who do you think has influenced your music, then it's really hard for me to like give an answer. हाँ, कुछ गाने हो सकते हैं जैसे लाइक इफ आई टॉक अबाउट द ईपी, तो उसमें कुछ
mm,
गानों की कुछ गानों का जो एक इन्फ्लुएंस है, मेजर पार्ट
mm,
वो शायद टिम्बरलैंड या जस्टिन टिम्बरलेक और उनका जो एक कॉम्बो था, उसकी कुछ
mm.
साउंड्स से मैं इंस्पायर हुआ हूँ। बट या आई मीन अगेन इट्स ऑल ओवर द प्लेस इफ यू इफ यू टॉक अबाउट इट।
When you go into making an EP like this, and so for people that don't know, you just put out your first EP and you have a lot of singles before, but this is your first kind of collective body of work, and I really like it. I think it's different from your initial
Yes.
songs because the melodies are almost more subtle.
Yeah.
You listen to them more often before you can get the
Yeah.
full song
Absolutely.
structure in your head. There's more kind of minutia to them, but the core, your voice remains. The words are that simplicity still comes through. When you go into making a body of work like this, Do you find yourself, in a कि आपको एक कोई playlist है जिसको आप सुन रहे हैं, and then you sort of see that kind of affecting the sort of work that you do, and then you go down a particular path, or are you, is sort of what you're consuming separate, and then what you're making kind of goes down the direction of where your collaborators are? What does that process look like for you?
I think the listening part is completely separate, and the actual
Hmm,
making part is completely different. And when, for example, if I just talk about the EP, then I didn't really have a structure in mind initially, and I didn't really have uh, set of songs that I was completely um, uh, inspired by. It's just I had some artist influences as I talked about, like Justin Timberland.
hmm,
So
hmm,
वो
hmm,
कुछ चीज़ें थी, बट जब वो प्रोसेस था पूरा बन रहा था और वो गानों का जो एक स्ट्रक्चर था, एंड 1 से 4 तक जिस तरह से वो फ्लो कर रहे थे, दैट वाज प्योरली आई थिंक वो हम जिस तरह से हमने बनाया वो हमारा ही एक उस पे फिंगरप्रिंट है उसमें।
hmm.
आई डोंट थिंक उस 4 गानों को अगर आप कहीं रखें, यू you'll फाइंड a similar pattern over there, वर्ड्स वाइज भी, आई थिंक म्यूजिक वाइज भी, तो वो आई थिंक वो काफी यूनिक चीज है, उसका कोई किसी के साथ एज सच ताल्लुक नहीं
Hmm. So this new album is with Shamir, correct?
है जी।
Shamir Raza.
यस।
And he was one of the first people, as far as I understand, that you worked with and that encouraged you to start releasing your music.
Shamir, like Shamir is actually he was in Riki with me, so he was also
Hmm.
like my roommate, and we used to like make covers in our hostel rooms, and so we've had a long journey, and he was also one of those guys who motivated me to put things out. क्योंकि जब आप ग्रेजुएट होते हो आप वो एक उसमें कॉर्पोरेट बबल में फंस जाते हो, and then it's very hard for you to break out of it and then to actually pen things down and have the guts to put things out in public. तो वो उसमें I think he was one of the main, he played a very crucial role in that. तो
You
आज भी
then did a
हमारे
few songs with
जी
you then did a few songs with Rovalio, who's a totally
जी
different kind of producer, it seems.
जी
तो वो आपको दोनों में like what how are your working styles, or what sort of how is the type of music you make different with both of them or other producers that you work with?
आई थिंक हर प्रोड्यूसर का बिल्कुल अपना ही एक सेंस होता है. सो फॉर एनी प्रोड्यूसर हु इज ट्राइंग टू मिमिक an artist or who's trying to mimic a certain beat, eventually they won't really succeed unless they change their vision. So Shamir is completely different with his sound. Rovalio is completely different. With Rovalio, it was a different working style because he had most of the things drawn out on, and it was more like an instrumental which was prepared and then I wrote stuff over it. शामिर के साथ ये होता है कि उसके साथ घर वाला सिस्टम है एक तरह से. So like he's usually over and we record one single guitar layer and then we keep on stacking things together. So I'm also like the co-producer on this EP, and
Hmm.
everything that you listen to, it's like we've done everything from one layer to another and then we kept on adding things. I recorded the guitar layers, and उसके साथ थोड़ा सा organic किस्म का process है, but with Rovalio
Hmm.
it's more, he has his thing, his part figured out. And then yeah, of course I'm part of the mix process and mix feedback,
Hmm.
but
Hmm. Hmm.
it's a completely different style.
बिल्कुल. Start to finish is EP को, like how long have you been working on this?
There was one song that took a lot of time, but I think the other three, they just happened pretty fast. Especially
Hmm.
Khulasa jo hai na, the last song of the EP, that song was made in a day. So हम लोगों ने एक गिटार लूप से स्टार्ट किया था और उसके ऊपर मैंने शामिर को मैंने कहा कि तुम ये इसको सही करो, सेट करो while I write stuff down, and then I had some thoughts in my mind which I just wanted to throw. और बस मैंने बड़ा, आई थिंक, एक होता है ना डेयरिंग तरीके से चीज़ें लिखी थी उसमें, और फिर 1 मिनट के अंदर गाना भी 1 मिनट का ही था और बस हमने उसी दिन उसको रिकॉर्ड किया, गाड़ी टेस्ट किया, 3-4 मिक्सेस निकाले, एंड लेटर ऑन उसको थोड़ा सा वोकली मैंने बेहतर किया था 1-2 टेक्स दे के, बट the process of making that song was within one day.
That's awesome. मेरे जो आपसे आखिरी चंद सवाल हैं वो थोड़े से डिफरेंट स्टाइल के हैं. वो ये कि आपको मैं देखता हूँ बहुत सारे आर्टिस्ट जो उस रुतबे पे हैं जिस पे आप हैं अब, in terms of listenership, have decided to go full time into this music work. And you
जी
said how part of the keeping it part time actually helps you in your creative process. So I understand that. When you look at the industry from an economic standpoint,
जी
और आप देखते हो कि you're one of the few artists that doesn't have a kind of some major corporate show or some major corporate entanglement as part of your success story. Like you are through and through, hit after hit, independently aay ja rahi. And now it's you're too big to reasonably ignore, but you have that kind of independent pathway. If you look at the industry now, do you think that sort of your pathway makes sense for new people coming in, if people want to go full time, or does it make sense to go full time? Like for a lot of people, I think outside of the industry, it's interesting to see कि सारे artists अपनी जिंदगी कैसे खड़ी करते हैं. Like, does it make
जी
sense to make music? Can we support you guys doing this in a better way? So what's your sense of the picture?
Absolutely. I think in the last 3-4 years, वो ecosystem की जो मैं बात कर रहा था, I think it has greatly improved, and it's a more sustainable way of working as compared to what it used to be. It's more habitable एक तरह से, and I feel like initially, like when you're starting out, don't directly jump into, making music full time and completely rely on music financially. I remember I used to think music cannot really be good uh, in terms of, the financial side of things, but I was wrong about a lot of things. मुझे भी काफी चीजों पे reality check मिला, and of course there's a certain magnitude attached to it. वो एक certain आप जब threshold cross करते हो, then it becomes really favorable for you. But I mean, it's just my take. Of course, people can argue, but मेरा अपना personal belief ये है कि you need to have at least some एक safety net for you to be able to do things without any disappointment. So if you, if for example you just quit your job and you release your first song and you release like 10 songs and you're not really getting the response that you wanted, then you wouldn't want to, feel like you've given out a lot and you're not really getting anything in return. So like having something on the side helps in the initial phase, and then you can also like get yourself some gear. You can get yourself some, equipment to get started with your journey. It may help you make a music video, for example. So like there are a lot of pros attached to it, unless of course your family is completely supporting you and they're funding you for all those things. But with, if I talk about someone who just releases music, then I mean, you won't really make money instantly. It takes time. So मेरा बस take यही है कि reach a point where you can see a pattern growing and you can see that you can at least get through without any pressure. Then you can just, fully focus on this thing. um I also think it's an individual assessment, so it really varies from person to person. So what worked for me may not work for anyone else. There are people who just like to focus on one thing at a time and just dedicate their life into it, have faith. So I mean, मैं कहूँगा कि like do an individual assessment and decide for yourself where you see yourself, and just, invest your energies in the right things, and make the right decisions. वो छोटे छोटे decisions ना आपकी पूरी life shape कर रहे होते हैं. So like make high quality decisions, do an individual assessment. Don't be an emotional fool all of a sudden, because most artists, और मैं अपने आप को इसमें इंक्लूड करता हूँ, मैं किसी को टारगेट नहीं कर रहा, मैं खुद भी, we are a bunch of emotional fools, and हम बहुत easily बहुत ज़्यादा traps में फंस जाते हैं. So yeah, I mean, like, have faith and do your thing, but practically.
If I had one word to describe you, fool is not the word I would choose. Um,
You don't
as
know me,
the
sir.
Acha, as my last question, like what's I know your album just came out and you're I'm sure working on videos and stuff for it, but what else is next on the horizon for you?
um so अभी फिलहाल तो थोड़ा सा मेरे लिए ब्रीदिंग फेज है, जिसमें मैं चीज़ें फिगर आउट कर रहा हूँ, मैं अपने आप को भी फिगर आउट कर रहा हूँ. तो बट एट दिस मोमेंट कुछ 4-5 प्रोजेक्ट्स अभी भी चल रहे हैं, एंड
Mm.
some work is done with the next one. So hopefully abhi Jan mein there's going to be collaboration. Can't really disclose, but hopefully if all thing, if everything works out, there's going to be a release in Jan. And then successive अभी कुछ singles पे ही काम होगा, like अभी EPs और albums पे फिलहाल के लिए break है. वो फिर वो एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो मैं
Mm.
मेरे लिए उस तरह से जैसे शौक पूरा करने वाली एक चीज़ होती है ना, so it's more inwards. It's a bit more selfish as compared to the singles वाली situation. So yeah, let's see.
Chalo, we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Hanan. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope this is not the last time that we
Yeah,
get to see you.
likewise. Have fun.
All
Take
right.
care. Bye bye.